Yeah, I think I would really appreciate if you a little bit talk about your journey to Iran, Tehran, because it was very important journey for you. That you made a you made a documentary, not short, but feature documentary. And could you explain a little bit to audience why you came to Iran and why you wanted to make that film? I would really appreciate, because it's really important. Many Iranian film that watch that documentary, and I want to know that why you wanted to interview with me and other filmmakers. That is much better you talk about it.
Yeah, well, I first went to, I'm sitting here in Edinburgh, Scotland, as you know, Mania, and I first went to Iran. I drove there from here, from my car that's sitting outside this door now. And so it was an overland journey, you know, and I felt that I'd been told a lot about Iran from the media and from the newspapers, but I was seeing the films, the great films by Farouk, who we've just mentioned, and Kamran Shirdel, and many of the filmmakers of the 60s and 70s. And in some ways, I wanted to see the country with my own eyes, or fresh eyes, you know, that feeling that you want to remove the barriers and sort of wipe your eyes clean, you know, that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so uh, that's why I went the second time, and Channel 4 had asked me to do something about Iran and try to show films about Iran. I thought, why not? Why not ask the question, where did Iranian cinema come from? Why is it different from the cinema that we make in Britain or America, etc.? So I felt almost like with a searchlight, a torch, and one of the people I found was you.
It's amazing. And Mark, I remember that. Could you because most of the time you talked about other filmmakers, and you wrote about my films beautifully a lot, and I really appreciate. But this time I wonder, I have lots of questions from you, front of the camera and front of the audience, but I would really appreciate if you tell us that, to audience, that why Furugh Farrokhzad, what happened to you, and why you wanted we went together to the grave of Furugh, and why you talked about Furugh with me as a young. I remember that you watched 20 Fingers, my first feature film, and that why what was the connection between my film and me and Furugh for you, as a two female filmmaker from Iran?
I think it was something to do, Mania, with the fact that I love cinema, which is realistic in some ways, you know, which is comes from a documentary impulse. You know, I love fantasy cinema. I love like Hollywood musicals, but what I'm more passionate about is cinema that has a kind of reality drive, you know, that is as sort of throws a line to the real world and holds on to that line almost. So she does that in her work, but she marries her sense of realism. For example, her most famous film, as you know, is about people with leprosy living closely together in an environment. She marries that realism with a kind of poetic or formal structure that really excited me. So that combination of, as it were, submitting herself to the real world, but also coming up with a form which was absolutely baroque almost. I loved that. And I felt that I saw that in your work. As you'll recall, when the Life May Be project started, I wrote basically a fan letter to you, you know, where people who have seen the film will know that I wrote a letter sort of thinking of you as a kind of Virginia Woolf. And I thought that you, in your work, Mania, had the reality impulse and the kind of formal impulse that married beautifully. Particularly in 20 Fingers, it was the one for me that really made me think this is one of the great filmmakers. You know, this is, as you'll recall, I compared you to Martin Scorsese in some ways, and I felt that was genuine because you were making shots that were formally elegant but were connected and rooted in the world.
That's beautiful, and it's very interesting for me that now you have a film that you made a 14 hours film about female filmmakers.
Yes,
I,
yes.
I would like that you connected between through and my work and your new film and
Yeah.
your new work that we have a screening at New York. And it was very respectful for me that you have a lots of attention to female filmmaker. That is really important, that the history needs it, because that we need more and more, honestly.
Yeah, well, this is something that you talk about in Life May Be. You remember you show us that lovely miniature painting and you ask, are these girls or boys? Are these women or men? And I think I've always been reluctant to accept the gender stereotypes. I don't like people saying men behave this way and women behave that way. And I can see that profoundly in your work and in Farouk's work and in my new film that you've mentioned, Women Make Film. It's a collaboration with me and Tilda Swinton, who's famously interested in androgyny, and Jane Fonda and Deborah Winger, and lots of people who say, no, I don't want to be imprisoned in my own gender or my own body. And I think
Exactly.
that's something that you and I talk about in this film, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Do you know, in my opinion, Mark, the secret of art is in the concept of relationship. And for me, your letter to me in life, maybe it was like a beautiful music. It was like a feeding my soul. It was like a two big wings that helping to me to flying again and again and again. Because do you know that we are talking about fame. At that time, I was stuck in London. I couldn't return to Iran, Tehran, because I had a very short interview with Iranian BBC Persian. And then after that, Iran 80 website from the government put my Mania Akbari, she's a lesbian and she has HIV positive and she run away, but they attacked to my gender as a female body identity. But it was very important for me, and then I found that I couldn't come back and I couldn't return to Iran. I couldn't touch my memory, my past, my just I was stuck with one suitcase and my memories was my backpack. And I was I had a really horrible feeling as a depression, and I didn't have any hope and any future. And the art language and your voice just helped me as a female woman, as a female filmmaker, honestly, women filmmaker. I'm not talking about gender, but because that time that specifically Iranian government attacked to my gender used exactly just lesbianism and HIV positive about the body, talk about body identity. And then that's the language between you, me, and me. It wasn't connection and relationship between two different language, two different culture, two different body, two different identity, two different memories. It was like a dancing, but the art language wasn't with you, wasn't with me. It was between us, between this space. It was dialogue.
Yeah.
How much dialogue it was important. And I don't know that. Yeah, this is my idea. That it's
And wasn't it lovely? As you know, Mania, it wasn't planned. There
yeah.
was no like script in advance or anything. There was just us responding to each other and getting excited by each other and getting excited by our filmmaking and our creative process. And we found connections. Before we started this, we didn't know that we were, for instance, interested in bodies, but also we were coming, I think, from very different points of view. You were not free. You were in exile. You had this sadness inside you because you could not live with your home and your dogs and everything. And even though I came from Belfast and the Troubles, I felt I was free. And when I look at my bits in our film, they're quite about landscape and freedom. And you quite rightly are talking about the limits of freedom in some way.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you talk about the process. During the process, I didn't have any idea to making film. The process was more important for me, honestly, to making the film. And you know that it was because of the like a honestly, it was like a art therapy for me. and every day of my life I'm just talk with you and I explain myself, and it was really beautiful for me. And because I think that is one important point, that we couldn't living with just monologue. We need dialogue,
Yeah.
and your voice helped me a lot that time.
And your voice helped me. I wanted to impress you. I remember that. I thought she is so brainy, and I remember seeing your where you wash yourself in the bath, and I thought
Yeah.
I thought I've never been clean before because you wash every bit, and I it was the excitement of wanting to impress another human being in this really quite um, formal environment. I say 10 minutes, you say 10 minutes. And I think that was exhilarating or exciting.
Do you know, Mark? Honestly, your letter for me was language of resistance. It was really important, giving me help to continue life. That art. That's why we need art.
What
That
does
why
that
we,
mean? What do you mean by language of resistance?
because they helped me that just to be creative every day of life, and your voice helped me to think and to just find solution, and creativity help you to standing again and again. Without creativity, I don't know how you can survive. That it's really hard. That it was a just it was a fighting between honestly death and life, and it's not easy. and and also it's very painful for me that, but because you want to live just simply, but lots of time without creativity, you have lots of depression. You have to deal with your past, because I'm continuation of my past. I'm continuation of my society. I'm continuation of my politics subject in my countries. I'm continuation of many females body from past. And yeah, that is, it's painful, it's suffering, I think. And yeah, that is, life is not easy. I think it's very scary for me. And just I think honestly, uh, and also it was very important for me just at the moment that I'm thinking exactly now. We have a that conversation like life maybe now, and in the dialogue, and it's beautiful. That I don't know, but yeah, I think that it's really important that uh, mm, yeah, we need deep dialogue, we need rich dialogue, we need creative dialogue.
Yeah,
Incredible, incredible to hear such a trivial conversation now that I'm back. Amazing that I didn't miss too much. Obviously, unbelievable comments between the two of you. A dialogue shows that the presenter is completely unnecessary. Good to have that point fundamentally proven now by your amazing dialogue. Manu and Mark, while I've been away. I'm not sure if anyone can hear this. Certainly, most of what I was saying at the beginning was disappearing probably exactly where it should go into the digital ether. But thank you so much for stepping in and doing more than stepping in, creating this incredible space where the bar is so high, raised so high that I can just walk straight under it towards the first trailer. Let's have a look at one of the trailers. I think we've got 4 trailers, 2 from each of you to look at your other work so we can give a context to your shared practice. And I think, Mania, let's look at, if we could first, at one of your earlier films, 10+4. Just give us a little sort of way into this, please, if you could. Thank you.
I talked now about 10+4.
Just give us a little introduction.
Oh,
We're
okay.
just
Okay.
going to see the
The
short trailer, but that'd be
oh,
great. Thank you.
perfect. The concept was a combination of documentary and fiction. In that film 10+4, I had cancer, and during my chemotherapy, and I start art therapy and cinema therapy too. I wasn't sure I'm going to live. I tried to looking for life, trying to find in the smallest moments my being, honestly. And also the film the film is about female body identity too, how illness and also breast cancer can affect on your body and changing your behavior and changing your body and changing your identity. And it was very strange that during my chemotherapy and cancer, I found that every day of my life that my body and my face is changing. and I couldn't find myself. Who am I? And yeah, the film is very interesting. That for me, that death and life, it was inside body, it was inside me. And in now we have in the coronavirus that the death is close to you, but that time I suffered and I have to fight with the death inside me, because it's very interesting that the cancer, that is a metaphorical of the death, and also you have to fight with this death, and both death and life, you carry death and life, and you have to fight with them. And it was, the film honestly helped to me to survive, to healing, to fight with cancer.
Well, we can't say anything more to top that. Thank you so much indeed, Mania. Let's have a look at the trailer now for 10+4. Thank you.
شبیه تو نباشه اصلا شبیه خودم میشه. حالا مواد در میاد.
آره 100% در بیاد دیگه. بلندش میکنه.
آره من کچلی دوست ندارم. من باید ماش بلند باشه.
این چه وضعیه؟
چی شده آقا؟ چی؟
این چه وضعی بدونیم آدم؟ زنی یا من؟
نمیدونم. شما چی فکر میکنید؟
چیکار داری من چی فکر میکنم؟ میگم زنی یا من؟
فکر میکنم زنم.
مینوش که عمر جاودانی این است.
اون پسر چه انتقام وحشتناکی از خودش رو بقیه گرفت. آره من هیچ وقت به خودکشی اینجوری فکر نکردم. از بابام خشم داشتم ولی نه تا این حد.
خود ارضایی چشم درد میاره.
مام بزرگ میگه کورم میکنه. خاله میگفت این به نظر من تنبیه خداست.
آواز خوندن برای زن تو این مملکت یه هنر مرده است، یه هنر مخفیه. برو برای دل خودت بخون.
Thank you so much. That was the trailer for 10+4 by Mania Akbari. She is one of our guests, the wonderful Iranian filmmaker, in conversation here tonight on LRB Screen at Home with the equally wonderful filmmaker Mark Cousins. They have both made the film together that we've been showing this week, Life May Be, a series of exchanges in the form of video letters. It's been a real pleasure to ask them to step in for me while I was losing the signal here somewhere in the stars, and they have been raising the bar of the conversation, as I said before the trailer, to a degree that I could only dream of. So many thanks indeed for setting that tone for us so well, Mania and Mark. Now we're getting questions in already about the film, so let's just bring those in, because I'm aware that time is moving on, and delighted that we have a range of very insightful comments already. And I'll start with this one, if I could, to both of you, from Aurora, who lives in the far Pacific Northwest. So many thanks indeed for joining us from so far away, Aurora. This is a question to Mania and Mark, a kind of comment really. But she asked if you could both please speak to the sense of longing through the imagination, which can only really be created by letters in forms, I guess, of the description within them. And then, of course, the imagination at a distance creating the image that's carried in the letter. And your respective choices thinking about this process. Mark, perhaps in terms of receiving the letters from Mania, how did that sense of receiving this kind of imaginative longing work for you?
Thank you, Aurora. I think all cinema is about longing in some way. Because Greta Garbo is no longer there when we watch her, so cinema is always light from a distant star. And the star might be dead, but the light's still traveling. And during the making of this film, Mania and I did not meet once. But when you are making a letter, when you're writing a letter, whether it's a video letter, you are thinking of the other person, and then you send it off and you wait and you hope that they'll like it. And so longing is very closely related to distance, and there was distance between us when we were making this. And I think that is perhaps the key element of, for me, what I liked about making this film.
Tremendous. Thank you very much indeed. I mean, you might have spoken about this when you started when I was out of the action. But Mania, when you started these letter exchanges with Mark, it was always the intention to make a film. Yes, that was always a given. And you might well have set that up for me before the process started. But is that right?
Yeah, but I think it was important that time for me. Mark sent me his letter. I start to think how I can reply with my own mother language, because I have a dyslexia and I couldn't talk English that time, and how I can reply to him with my own memories, my own inner words, my trauma, and make a deep conversation with another person who can represent another world. And it was really important that for me, and also it was very beautiful that we didn't meet each other at all. We didn't have any contact, any phone, any messages, any email, just we waiting. That it was we are waiting that time, and just that it was everything. It was very beautiful that when you are waiting to have one beautiful gift postman give you, just when they ring the door, and your feeling is really just like a child. And every time the email I received any email ping in my phone, and I thought maybe it's Mark, and what wasn't. And then at the end one day, oh why, it's Mark. And then running to the home and sitting on the sofa and watching my letter. It was beautiful. It was a combination of images and narration, but it was my letter. That it was just this distance. It was really beautiful. It was very metaphorical, and it was kind of love story, honestly.
And
tremendous.
I remember, Mania, when you sent your second letter, and when you said that you had written Virginia Woolf's Orlando on your body, I mean, I could not believe it. I knew you were really major filmmaker, but this was one of the most striking things I'd ever seen. And I remember my editor sits over there at that table, and I remember saying to him, Timo, you will not believe what Mania has just sent.
It's very interesting. Wow. I would like to add that I believe that all my memories just was a pen, just inscribed in my skin. And also I believe that my skin sent you letter, because it was filled of memories. That it was a transformation between human body and skin, because I believe that the deepest part of my body is my skin.
Tremendous stuff. I'm very touched by obviously how these letters have moved between you. I'm reminded of another film where, of course, letters play a crucial role. Kevin Costner's important post-apocalyptic movie, The Postman, where commenters, as they receive the letters, tell Kevin Costner, of course, that he doesn't bring them letters, he brings them hope. And clearly that's been the case in this wonderful exchange as well. Now, more questions coming in. That was from Steve. And Maximum Bob, great name, Maximum Bob, thank you very much for a couple of questions. I think we've sort of touched on the first one about turning the correspondence into a film, but you've come back with another question now about looking back on the film. It was made 6 years ago. And does the film still kind of make sense to you both, he asks? Has how you feel about it changed? I guess obviously it's recognizable, and we've been talking about it already, but does it still make sense? Does it feel have a currency for you both?
Mania, you watched the film last night?
Yes, I've watched again.
Is it good?
Yeah. It's honestly, every time, I don't know, I don't want it. Maybe I have a personal feeling about my film. Most of the time after I finish my film, I don't like my film. I hate most of my films. I want to just go to the next. But I have a really deep connection to life, maybe, and Emun for my father. And it's very interesting, because both the concept is coming from dialogue and letters together. That is beautiful. And I found, oh wow, that is very emotional. I was emotional and I cried. That it was very painful, but somehow, I don't know, but it is beautiful. I don't know, how about you, Mark?
Yeah, well, I watched it today. I haven't seen it in 6 years. And like you, I don't watch things. And I thought, it felt slightly like a kind of Zoom film, where people in isolation write to each other. So it felt slightly of our times. And yeah, I thought it was good. What I could really feel was you and me finding unplanned connections between each other. Because, to be clear, this wasn't really planned as a film at all, and our mutual friend Esan Hoshbach sort of slightly suggested, but it wasn't planned. It just built, and I could feel that building. And as we know, anybody who's a writer or a filmmaker or doing anything, we're often looking for the form, like the kind of shape of our story or of our film. And this one just had, by chance, a shape, didn't it, Mania? Where I wrote, you wrote, I wrote, you wrote, and it seemed to work because of the expectation we were talking about earlier. So I didn't hate it when I watched it today, which for me is a big thing.
Yeah, it's very interesting that
that's a great result. Couple more questions coming in now. From another one here from Good World Journeys, which seems to be a suitable moniker for tonight's conversation. I mean, in terms of the films that you've both made since, I mean, Mandy, you've already hinted at this slightly with the idea of the dialogue with Douglas for A Moon for My Father. But how was the method and conversation that you established in life maybe sort of impacted your own and external creative process since then? I mean, both of you really. I mean, in terms of not just really the letters exchanged necessarily, but the form of that kind of spontaneous building maybe of a film out of something that was not necessarily going to end up as that.
Yeah, I think honestly, after life maybe, and I found that it's very interesting and it's amazing feeling, because the film is not just your idea or your creativity. It's a creativity and conversation and dialogue between two people. That's why I like Life Maybe and A Moon for My Father, and I don't like other my films anymore. And just honestly, because it's not just about me, it's a conversation that is more important than him. But and also my camera is very close to me all the time. This noise is my son's noise. Sorry, all the time and always, and like my child. I'm filming every day my life, and not necessarily for a specifically project, but filming the reality of life. And I'm making just film most of the time from rubbish, that the people thinking that is not good is nothing. But I have a lots of respect to Robert Rauschenberg, artist from USA, because I believe that he is making a new meaning of nothing, honestly. And I'm trying to just make this kind of conversation and dialogue with around myself, with the words, and that. Yeah, and I'm at the moment, I'm not thinking to making any other films. I'm focusing on the book as a dialogue again, and writing a book as a dialogue again with Mark. I have lots of questions of Mark Cousins and Ben Rivers and John Smith about art and cinema. That is very important. And the book, honestly, I don't have any idea for next film, that because I really like dialogue, and I found that people needs dialogue. People needs lots of letters during the life. And life is not monologue. Life is conversation and dialogue between you and human in the world.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mania. Let's have a look, Mark, now, if we could, because it's already come up earlier in the conversation, at the trailer for Women Make Film, if we could, because that would be obviously an example of great collaboration. So let's have a look at that now. Thank you.
Okay.
Most films have been directed by men. Most of the recognized so-called movie classics were directed by men. For 13 decades, and on all 6 filmmaking continents, thousands of women have been directing films too. Some of the best films. What movies did they make? What techniques did they use? What can we learn about cinema from them?
form and content, violence and tenderness, love and loss.
We have seen the world. Hundreds of great examples of cinema, 14 hours on the road.
The films we looked at have far more female protagonists.
Far more women at the center of the movies. Hooray for that.
Women make movies, great movies. They've done so since the birth of cinema.
They've helped define the anarchic, androgynous rectangle.
The movie screen.
There are surprises in what follows. Let's start at the beginning.
Thank you so much. So, Mark, Women Make Film. Now, that is already out, I think, this week in the US. Is that right?
That's right, and it's played in lots of other countries, Gareth, and here in the UK it comes out next week.
Fantastic. So a huge undertaking, obviously comparable to the story of film, but obviously massively overdue in terms of the culture. And just before we come on to some more questions from the audience, I mean, apart from the obvious need to cover such work in such depth, was there a spark to that project that meant that it could happen, if you like, that turned it from an idea into a reality?
It's made out of a love for cinema, to be honest. It's as simple as that. You know, I was seeing all these great films made by women around the world, and they were not in the conversation. And I got increasingly frustrated. You know, people talk about the great war movies, and they don't talk about the female directors. They talk about the great tracking shots, and they don't mention Mania Akbari. They talk about the great film noirs and thrillers, and they don't mention Binka Jeleskova, and they don't mention Edith Kalmar. And, you know, at a certain point, you just think, stop. We need to stop only talking about the great male directors, you know. So that was why we did it.
Fantastic. Well, it's great, obviously, your admiration for Mania's work. And Mania, I think we'd like to have a look, I think, if we could, at the film that you mentioned, of course, the kind of sister film to Life May Be for You, A Moon for My Father, a collaboration, of course, with Douglas. I wonder if you could just set that up for us. Let's have a little look at that, and then we'll come to the remaining questions. So just give us a sense of the trailer for A Moon for My Father, how this project sits for you still. Mania, is that okay? Mania, can you hear me, Mania?
Yes, I have to talk now.
Well, you don't have to, but if you'd like to, yeah, it'd be great. Just to give us a little sense of, we'll have a look at the.
I said we are waiting for trailer.
Yeah. No, I think let's look at it now, because then we can run through to the end with the questions from the audience. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so, now I can talk a little bit about it if you want.
It would be great. Yeah.
The film is about the object and memory, and is about the different kind of transformation. The sculpture that by Douglas White, they are very a storyteller. They connected deeply with my sense and my feeling, my memories, and it was a conversation, is a dialogue between objects and body, and it was very important. But it's very interesting that Life May Be, the love story between Mark Cousin and me, at the end we had a baby that it was a film. And the love story between Douglas White and me, at the end, we have a baby, really.
Yeah.
And it's not just film. That is a different the concept.
What age is he now, Mania?
Yeah.
What age is he? What age is he now?
He's
now 2 years half. Yeah. Yeah, 2 years half. Yeah, okay. That is very deep. That is different of the concept, honestly, of the content, honestly. But the structure was same as the letters to each other in A Moon for My Father. But it is very interesting that I'm talking. I have a deep conversation with the object and my past and my memories. And also most of the object is a transformation between a skin of animals and human body. And that is for me is a continuation of the skin from Life Maybe.
Very good. Let's have a look at the trailer now, then, please. Thank you.
Dear Mania.
Douglas عزیز.
What a
Thank you very
beautiful,
much.
it's a beautiful film.
Yeah,
Wonderful
thank you.
film. And it's still traveling, Mania, isn't it? Obviously, it's showing at festivals, but I think I'm right in saying that very soon there'll be several online screenings online because, of course, of the situation we're in.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
people can see globally. Where would they be? Where should people look for that?
I honestly, I would like to put all my films on the Vimeo and YouTube because of Iranian audience. They have I
Yeah.
want. Honestly, I would like they could watch, they could access to the link, and yeah, I will do just next 2-3 months if I have time. Definitely, I will do for my audience. Just
That's tremendous. So obviously, yeah.
Yeah,
the Moon for My Father though is having gallery screenings, I think, in Sweden and the US. Yeah, is that right?
Yes, in museum and some galleries are screening, but they put online. They will put, because at the moment everything is just closed.
Exactly.
That's the situation. The life is online life at the moment. Just
great.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, people should keep an eye, obviously, on your website because all your events go up there, don't they? And if people go to mania-film.com, they will find details of those coming screenings and obviously, hopefully, the online programming that you've said, which would be great. Now, we just got one more question relating, of course, to tonight's film, Life May Be. And this is from Adam Huffman. And Adam just says how much he loved the film and how great it was seeing you, Manu, at the ICA when you were presenting 10, of course, Kiarostami's 10 that you started. He enjoyed that very much as well. But he asked both of you that if you could have directed each other's essays, what do you imagine would have come of that? How would that have worked? If it could have worked at all, perhaps.
Sorry, Gareth, I didn't have your voice. Could you repeat?
You're losing me again. Yep. So no, the question was, if you could have directed each other's essays in Life May Be, how different would they have been? How for both of you? A question really. I mean, Mark, perhaps. Can you imagine that exchange?
I can't imagine directing Mania's letters because everything about what Mania sent me was new to me in some way. The exile quality, and there's so much that I was learning all the time. So I can't imagine standing in Mania's shoes and looking at the world from her point of view and then directing that. I think that for me, I'm a kind of film lover more than a film director in some way, and so I become like a child in front of the cinema rather than a professional, and so I was a child when I received Mania's letters.
Yeah, thank you. And Mania, can you imagine making marks, as it were? Is that something you could?
I think I couldn't imagine that directed myself. Just how I can direct Mark and Mark too. And I think the most important the concept of the film was the just very innocent voice without any directing, without any making film, without anything that we want to making films. The process was more important than the film to be filmed to result. That the process was really pure, innocent, just conversation, personal and private conversation between two people, dialogue between two people. That the point was, because it was letter, and the point of the film was we didn't have any director. And that is important, that the film doesn't have any director. And just I think that is I don't know, I cannot imagine other way.
That's beautiful thing. That's a great thing to say.
I cannot imagine other way, honestly.
Thank you both. We're moving to the final two questions now, and they're questions from contributors who have already offered up their thoughts. From Steve, one for Mania. I'll put them both together here, but undoubtedly one for Mania here. Steve asks you, Mania, how did you feel about Mark's naked sofa appearance, and what was your sense of that when you saw that for the first time? And Maximum Bob is back. Welcome back, Maximum Bob. And this is, again, I guess, for both of you, and a nice question to close with, but let's not forget the sofa question. Maximum Bob asks about the intimacy of the film. It felt like an incredibly intimate film and very honest, and I think we've touched on those aspects already. I can imagine, he says, being so open in a personal letter, but how difficult was it to expose, his word, your own selves on film? So Mark, of course, was exposing himself in a different sense on the sofa, but exposing yourselves on film in the wider way. How easy or hard was it to do that? So Mania, perhaps just let us know your thoughts briefly about the sofa, and then if we could hear from both of you about yourselves being exposed.
I think from honestly, for me, the concept of the film is a naked body. I wasn't surprised that I saw Mark in the film, because his language was naked for me, without clothes, and his dialogue was like a knife that just like operated the body, just opened the body, opened the clothes, and Mark's dialogue opened my clothes at the end. And I think, it wasn't just about objectifies the body. I'm not talking about the body. I'm talking about inside the body. You know that, because I'm not my body. I'm inside my body too. But that it was very hard. It was very painful for me, step by step. It was like a knife, and just open you, just layer by layer, to connect it deeply with your just some secret. And I showed to Mark that my operation and my, but I never show to any man before Mark whole my life. And that is, it was just big bang for me. And that was biggest step as a woman that had a breast cancer, and she's dealing with the just different deformation of the body. And it was beautiful experience, but it was painful too.
Thank you so much, Mania. And Mark, obviously, you've spoken again about the kind of the pleasure of the exchange, but did it feel like it was an exposing, or with the sort of slightly negative connotations perhaps that come with that, or not negative, but the idea of some kind of challenge, but obviously something that you embraced as fully as well, I think?
Yeah, well, as usual, Mania expresses it better than I could. It wasn't, you know, the personal aspect, the naked aspect of it wasn't a problem for me. The problem for me was the usual problem of avoiding banality, of trying to be, you know, not to under imagine a situation, to imagine it fully, you know, and that's why in that last letter to Mania, I didn't use my voice at all, because I wanted to try and imagine it fully, and thought to use a piece of music instead. So being naked wasn't a problem, and in fact, I slightly regret being not fully frontally naked in the film. It wasn't, you know, there was footage of my penis, but it didn't make the final cut. That was my editor's decision. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was just trying to live up to the high creative standards of this great artist that we're talking to.
Tremendous. Fantastic way, I think, to close the formal part of the conversation now. Thank you both very much indeed, and also for really taking on the opening of the conversation where my technology failed, because I wanted hugely to impress both Manu and Mark, and I failed profoundly, I think, on that front. But thank you very much for taking it on at the beginning and filling that space so wonderfully with conversational dialogue of such great insight and value to us all. We're going to move now just towards the closing comments. I just wanted to ask you both, before we do that, of course, soon lockdown will be lifted in the UK in various forms. It will take some time, of course, for everything to come back into circulation. But you're both citizens of the world, of course, and as we know from our previous Prime Minister Theresa May, that means you're literally citizens of nowhere. But of course, you always have a home, which is the great collective home of cinema. But are there places that you particularly both want to go to, each of you, when you can travel more freely? Are there key sites that you would like to head for? Mania, perhaps.
Gareth, can you tell me shortly, because I had.
You're losing it. Yeah. So just
yes,
a question:
when
you're able to travel, where might you head for? Where is an important place for you?
Hopefully, I'm not going anywhere. Just in my studio and sitting and writing. Nothing.
Perfect.
I think one of important things in this horrible situation, I found that we are doing lots of things that we don't need, and world doesn't need to.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Very good point. And Mark, I mean, you've obviously got many projects underway. Is there one that will take you somewhere, or something more personal, perhaps in another way?
What I would like to do after this, I would like there to be a new revolution in Iran where people are free again. And there's one point in life maybe where Mania imagines running naked in a beach in Iran, and I would like to do that.
That
hopefully
sounds like
it might happen.
Tremendous thing to aim for, both collectively on the part of the Iranian population, of course, and also on larger global geopolitical front. That will be a tremendous goal, I think, and one that would absolutely usher in a better world for all of us. Thank you both very, very much indeed. We're almost out of time here. I'd just like to thank the producer of the film, Don Boyd, for all his help in making this screening possible. Of course, thank everyone at the London Review of Books and the London Review Bookshop, and Sam and Anthony behind the scenes tonight as well. We'd like to give a nod to mutual friends Sukhdev Sandhu and Maheli Modi, both great champions of Mania's and Mark's work in different ways. Do find Second Run DVD, where you will find many, many great films, including a film by Mania, of course, and also comments and notes by Mark in the booklet as well. So it's a family of cinema that it's a pleasure to be a small part of. From my point of view, it's been a real pleasure being in conversation, at least for the majority of the time, with Mania and Mark. And we just want to draw your attention before we announce next week's film to a very important birthday, of course. And Mark, I think you have a little tune you'd just like to give us a flavour of. That would be great.
Yes, on 6th of May, a long time ago, a certain person called Orson Welles was born, and I have this music box, and I play it when I'm happy, and I play it when I'm sad. So people will recognize this tune. It's the theme tune from The Third Man.
But you don't just have a music box, do you? You also have something else much closer to Orson Welles. Is that right?
Yeah, well, my flat where this is my edit suite, and it's a bit of a mini film museum. So if I can step away for a moment. We have here the foot fetishists amongst you will like this, and I have to say the Catholics amongst you will probably like this as well, because here are some relics. That is one of the last boots worn by Orson Welles, and that's the other one. Can you see those? Yeah, and these were handmade for Orson Welles, because he was a big man and he had complicated foot issues, and I bought these online on the internet in a sort of slightly kitschy way, and I found in one of them this. Which is Incredible. The orthotic of Orson Welles. And those of you who know your Orson Welles, the great director of Citizen Kane, etc., will know that he couldn't fight in World War II because he was flat-footed. Here is the proof. What a beautiful fetishistic way to end.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, you really have changed the nature of these conversations, and it will now be a demand of the guests that they bring in major footwear, or at least some other kind of fetishistic artifact belonging to key filmmakers. Of course, now we cannot say that we have not seen the inner soul of Orson Welles. We really have. Tremendous. Thank you both very much indeed again, and thank you, Mark, for sharing Orson Welles' birthday with us. Of course, and let's remember that Mark has made a film about Orson Welles' incredible drawings and images that were hidden for ages, are The Eyes of Orson Welles. So do please find that as well. Thank you both very much indeed. And we're now going to step away from the camera, which I'm sure those of you who are still with us from the beginning will think is actually a very good move on my part, given the disastrous entry that I had to this evening's presentation. So we will all be doing that collectively, and we will now be leaving you with the trailer for next week's film. Do please join us in the normal way. Sign up to the London Review Bookshop newsletter, and of course to the newsletter for the London Review of Books. They are different operations in that regard. And tomorrow you will receive the information about how to access the film you're about to see the trailer of. And next Wednesday at the same time, 7 o'clock UK time, I will be in conversation with the filmmaker, who sounds like he's already been in conversation with Mania about her current project, Ben Rivers, the maker of 2 Years at Sea. So many thanks indeed for joining us from across the world, and hope to see you next week. And do now enjoy, please, the trailer for 2 Years at Sea. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Mm.